This past weekend, the Stockholm Regional Championships for Pokemon Go were held. This was the first streamed tournament of the Might and Mastery meta. And, as expected, some new top meta contenders like Credilli and Swalot rose to the top of the meta. However, unexpectedly, there was a strategy that had never been tried before in competitive Pokemon Go PvP that, against all odds, produced results and actually helped a trainer climb into Top Cut at day number 2. My name is Homeslice Henry, and I am an official broadcaster for the Pokemon Go Championship Series. And today, I'm going to be telling the story of Galaxcobolton, who managed to make Pokemon Go competitive history by trying a never-before-used strategy in competitive that actually ended up working. Now, this strategy is called timeout, or as it's known in the main series, stall. In a game of competitive Pokemon Go PvP, there is a match timer. The match timer is never displayed on the screen until the last 15 seconds of the match, but a match of competitive Pokemon Go PvP is 4 minutes and 30 seconds long. Now, you may be asking, if the match timer hits 0, why would that let Galaxcobolton win? Well, there are some specific conditions where if the match timer hits 0, you will be granted a win. First of all, if the match timer hits 0, the battler who has the highest number of Pokemon still alive will be granted the win. So, if you still have all 3 Pokemon and your opponent only has 2, even if your opponent has 2 full health Pokemon, the trainer with fewer fainted Pokemon will be granted the win. Now, in the event that the number of Pokemon on the field is tied between the 2 competitors, then it goes down to the total percentage of health remaining on those Pokemon. So this means that if you're running a Pokemon species that naturally has low health, but you have a high percentage of that total health left, you would be granted the win over a Pokemon species that has much higher total HP, but a lower percentage of that total HP remaining. This strategy has seen some minor success in the Go Battle League, where it is a blind threes format, where timeout can be more effective if you don't know it's coming. But in the competitive series, it's a show 6 pick 3 style open team sheet format, so his opponents would know that this is his plan. Now, this team for the Stockholm Regional Championships is honestly designed very interestingly. This team is a multifaceted team. Basically, there are 2 modes. The first mode is the timeout mode, and the star of the show is Chansey. Chansey has a monstrous HP pool, so the strategy involves grabbing an early KO, using a lot of Pokemon that have moves to debuff the opponent's attack, with Bubble Beam on Mantine, Icy Wind on Dugong, and Leaf Tornado on Superior, and then using Chansey's immense HP pool to just absorb these debuffed attacks and stall out the timer to get the win. However, this team also has a second mode, and that involves the Shadow Drapion, the Shadow Sableye, and again the Dugong and Superior. So, if the Chansey strategy doesn't seem viable in a particular matchup, the team can default back to a standard team that is looking to win by trying to secure knockouts by dealing meaningful damage to the opponent. The matchup we'll be taking a look at today is Galaxcobolton versus his winners semifinals opponent, Lessedua. The opponent's team consists of Azumarill, Clodsire, Shadow Feraligatr, Malamar, Credilli, and Corviknight. So there's no fighting type Pokemon, which means the normal type Chansey should have pretty decent play trying to time out these games. However, one Pokemon to be mindful of is Malamar, the Dark Psychic type, as a triple resist to the fast moves and headbutt of Chansey, and has a fighting type charge attack superpower that can hit Chansey for super effective damage, but at a cost of debuffing its own attack and defense. Both battlers lock in their teams of 3 for game number 1. It's going to be Shadow Drapion for Galaxcobolton into Azumarill for Lessedua. This is an unfortunate lead for Galaxcobolton, as Drapion, even though Poison Sting will hit for super effective damage, both of its charge attacks, Aqua Tail and Crunch, are going to be walled by the Water Fairy typing of Azumarill. Galaxcobolton, he does have the Chansey in the back, so he is trying out this timeout mode. Crunch has a 30% chance to debuff the opponent's defense, and Galaxcobolton does have a bit of good luck go his way. Galaxcobolton will decide to use an early shield in this matchup, as ideally, he wants to try and get a KO, and Drapion is the Pokemon on this team that can actually output damage. He's brought Mantine and he's brought Chansey in the back, neither of which are going to output a lot of damage. Galaxkabolton lands a crunch, gets a second defense drop. This one is actually a little bit worse for him, as it does limit the amount of farm that he could potentially get. Lessedua is going to force the final shield, and Lessedua pivots out into Corviknight. Lessedua is well aware that it could be Chansey in the back, and if that's the case, he cannot allow Galaxkabolton to take a KO. Because the moment Galaxkabolton has the advantage in terms of Pokemon left alive, then Galaxkabolton can try and stall out the rest of the game. Galaxkabolton will fire off a second crunch at the Corviknight. This will force the shield, and now out comes Mantine. When Mantines are used, they typically run Aerial Ace and Ice Beam, with the Ice-type damage from Ice Beam able to hit Corviknight for neutral. But due to the timeout strategy of this team, this Mantine has given up the damage of Ice Beam for Bubble Beam, a move that does almost no damage, but has a guaranteed chance to debuff your opponent's attack. So Galaxkabolton will now be able to debuff the Corviknight, but the lack of damage is genuinely an issue, because if the Corviknight is able to prevent itself from getting knocked out, then things could get quite uncomfortable. Corviknight will fire off a Sky Attack. It is now one stage debuffed. Mantine is going to absorb this damage very comfortably. Mantine looking to farm up, going for the slightly harder hitting Aerial Ace, but even this will not be enough to knock out the Corviknight, and that will be a pretty significant problem. Aerial Ace will land, there's the switch into Chansey, and out comes Malamar. Malamar, not the Pokemon that Chansey was hoping to see. If it saw anything else in the back, this would be a lot better. Now Chansey is very comfortable at absorbing these charge attacks. Malamar is going to go for the neutral foul plays because Superpower, even though it's super effective, does come at a cost of debuffing your attack and defense. Chansey is going to make it to a Dazzling Gleam. This is super effective damage, but all of Chansey's stats are in its health. It has almost no attack. Even a super effective Dazzling Gleam does very little to the Malamar. Malamar going for another foul play, and the thing to watch here is the switch timer for Lessedua. Firing off this foul play is going to connect, and Chansey, you now see the power of Chansey to try and stall out these games, but Chansey will now take super effective damage from a superpower, as Lessie will be able to pivot out and undo the debuffs that he's about to apply. He's going to pivot into the Corviknight. Corviknight is going to fire off an Iron Head. Iron Head is going to do less damage than a Sky Attack, but Lessie hoping to get to a second move. Iron Head is going to connect. This is going to be close. Can another Iron Head be reached? No, it cannot. The Chansey gets the farm down, and Galaxkabolton takes the knockout that he so desperately needed. But the issue is, the match timer is still not yet up, and that means that he is in trouble. He has no energy anywhere. He's going to send in the Drapion. Drapion can't get to a charge attack as Malamar immediately goes for the foul play. Foul play is going to connect, knocking out that Drapion. The match timer will be counting down to 0 very shortly, but for Galaxkabolton, he's out of options. His inability to KO the Corviknight earlier on put him in a very difficult position. The Aerial Ace is reached, but this is not enough damage to KO the Malamar. So Aerial Ace will land into the Malamar. There's the match timer beginning to count down, 12, 11, but for Galaxkabolton, he gets close to the timeout, but can't quite execute in game number 1, as Superpower from the Malamar KOs the Chansey. A bit of humor from the broadcast saying one-hit KO, and Galaxkabolton is now down 1-0 in this best of 3. For game number 2, a switch in strategy from Galaxkabolton, leading the Dugong, and Dugong catches a great lead leading into Corviknight. Corviknight does lose all even shielding scenarios against Dugong. So for Galaxkabolton, this adjustment, Dugong is one of the Pokemon that can function as a damage dealer and a stall Pokemon. So in game 1, he didn't have the damage he needed, so he's making an adjustment in strategy. And Dugong will do a very good job at potentially forcing out the Corviknight, because the Corviknight does not want to stay in and just get debuffed and do no damage and eventually get KO'd. So Lesay is going to make a decision, save switching into Credilli. Credilli instantly met with Serperior. Serperior is running Leaf Tornado, a move that has a 50% chance to lower the opponent's attack by 2 stages, and if Galaxicobolton wants damage, then he'll be able to fire off Frenzy Plant. Rock Tomb applies an attack debuff of its own to the Serperior. Galaxicobolton knows he needs damage. He didn't get enough KOs last game, so he's going for it, and landing that Frenzy Plant is going to deal significant damage even when debuffed. Another Rock Tomb reached by the Credilli, and another No Shield by the Serperior. If Galaxicobolton is able to KO Credilli, then he will look to pivot out of the Serperior, preserving it, because he would have an advantage in the amount of Pokemon left alive. A Frenzy Plant fired by Galaxicobolton, the No Shield by his opponent. Frenzy Plant is double debuffed, but he gets that all-important knockout. In comes Corviknight. He's firing off a double resisted Leaf Tornado, fishing for that 50% chance at a double attack drop. Leaf Tornado into the Corviknight. It does not get the debuff. We see a switch out into Dugong. Dugong now very comfortable absorbing hits from the Corviknight. The important thing for Galaxicobolton is he preserves the Serperior. He has the 3-2 Pokemon advantage, so as long as he's able to stall out this timer with debuffs and with the immense health of Chansey, he will be able to even up this series. In comes Azumarill. Drill Run hits for neutral, but Galaxicobolton doesn't want damage. He wants to stall time. So he's going to fire off an Icy Wind. It looks like Lesay had a bit of a connection issue there where he did actually miss a bubble, but in the end, it does not impact the outcome of the game whatsoever. Azumarill farming up, now going to go for a Play Rough, but it has been double debuffed. That means this will not be enough to KO the Dugong, and Galaxicobolton can continue the strategy. He's able to preserve the low health Pokemon. He's going to bank a bunch of energy, and now out comes the star of the show, Chansey. Lesay is not able to switch just yet, due to the fact that his switch timer is not up, so he's forced to throw a double debuffed Play Rough that does nothing, and now he's finally able to switch, and Corviknight re-hits the field. But this is where Chansey's monstrous HP is such a problem. Galaxicobolton looks at the crowd. He knows this strategy has been executed to perfection in game number 2. This Corviknight can fire off as many charge attacks as it would like, but what it can't do is prevent itself from being slowly farmed down by this Chansey. Chansey, 1 shield remaining, but it does not have to use it here, so Chansey very comfortable letting this Sky Attack through. Switch timer is available for Galaxicobolton, but he does not want to switch out unless he absolutely has to. And that is because those other 2 Pokemon are so low on HP, and he cannot afford to let them get knocked out. Dazzling Gleam is going to be shielded. Galaxicobolton, at the very least, able to force the first shield away from the opponent. Going for Dazzling Gleam number 2. And Lesay knows if he gives up another KO, there's no way he can win this game. He has to try and preserve his Pokemon and somehow find a way to knock out one of Galaxicobolton's Mons. But Galaxicobolton is completely in the driver's seat here. He's just going to no-shield this Sky Attack once again. There's the switch into Azumarill. Azumarill farming up, trying to get to a charge attack, getting to an Ice Beam, but guess what? It's still not going to be enough. Ice Beam at the Chansey. Chansey with the no shield. It's low, but the match timer begins to count down. Galaxicobolton throws the Dazzling Gleam. It's 10 seconds burned off the clock for each charge attack, so he doesn't even have to do any damage, because the strategy is not about damage. It's about time, and Galaxicobolton gets the win, and we move to game 3. In game number 3, it's Serperior into Azumarill, a dominant lead for Galaxicobolton. Lesay brought the Malamar this time, attempting to hunt for the Chansey, but unfortunately, the Malamar is switched into this Serperior because Azumarill has such a negative matchup there. Serperior going to go straight for a Frenzy Plant here. He's on the offensive and lands critical damage onto that Malamar. The opponent tried to call a Leaf Tornado there to see if Galaxicobolton was fishing for the debuff, but after game 1 didn't go his way, he has adjusted the strategy. He wants damage. He needs to be able to pick up a knockout, because once he gets one of those knockouts, he is on track to win the game. Superior is going to be committing the shield. He cannot afford to let Superior get knocked out. Superior, unable to get the farm down, will be forced to fire off a Leaf Tornado. And the opponent decides to let it go. This means Galaxicobolton is going to get that ever-coveted knockout. Galaxicobolton looking to pivot out. In comes Corviknight. There is the switch to Dugong. And again, this strategy, it's just diabolical when it works. And it looks like he may be on the path to victory once again. Corviknight will be firing off a Sky Attack. He elects to let this go. And Chansey is going to try and stall out the remainder of this game with its massive bulk. Corviknight using an early shield, Lesse realizing that health on the Corviknight will be very valuable. Corviknight going to farm up energy here, and he's going to make a great play. That's switching into the Azumarill, because now the Corviknight has reset that Icy Wind debuff. So that means the energy, when it's brought back onto the field, will be once again at full power. Dugong, speaking of full power, is going to immediately take that Azumarill to -1. Dugong going to actually not throw the charge attack here. Instead, Dugong is going to look to bank this energy. Play rough by the Azumarill. It's debuffed. It will not be enough to knock out, and Chansey hits the field. Unfortunately, no switch into the Corviknight available just yet. The switch timer for Pokemon Go PvP is 50 seconds. So once you switch in, you are stuck on the field until the switch timer is up. Play rough is going to connect onto the Chansey, and since it's been debuffed, it just does absolutely nothing. Chansey seeming inevitable, but here's where the energy on that Corviknight will potentially become a problem. As Corviknight, instead of throwing that energy when it was debuffed, it switched out, and now the Chansey is going to be taking full power attacks. The Sky Attack lands, and this is damage that Chansey does not want to take. Chansey is on the team to be a stall Pokemon. It's not on the team to do damage, so this resisted Dazzling Gleam is going to do basically nothing to that Corviknight. This Corviknight is looking to be a pretty big problem. There's such little HP remaining on Galaxicobolton's final 2 Pokemon that are not named Chansey. Another Sky Attack from the Corviknight, another no shield by the Chansey, but the Chansey is now at about 1/3 health, and it's rapidly decreasing. Chansey farming up here, and it's going to be met with another Sky Attack. Galaxicobolton with another no shield, because he knows every charge attack that's thrown, it gets closer and closer to the match timer coming up. Galaxicobolton going for a bit of a Hail Mary here, firing off the Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam is resisted, but it does get same type attack bonus. Hyper Beam into the Corviknight does do damage, but not enough. Corviknight makes one final Sky Attack. Galaxicobolton again with a no shield. Chansey will survive this, not by much. We are going to see a switch to Azumarill and a switch back into Superior. Superior will need to shield this, however. Galaxicobolton needs damage on this Azumarill, because if he can't knock out the Azumarill or get it low, he's in trouble. And it looks like he cannot make it to 2 Frenzy Plants. He can make it to 2 Leaf Tornadoes, but Azumarill will survive. And that means that Galaxicobolton is going to have a Pokemon knocked out, which means this game will actually be decided by health remaining. And that Azumarill still has quite a bit of health. The good news is Superior will get to chip away here, firing off the Leaf Tornado. Azumarill now very low. The 2-stage attack debuff comes through, but Ice Beam will still be enough to knock out here. There is a move available on this Dugong. The match timer is at 1. It hits 0, but before it does, he gets this Drill Run. Drill Run into the Azumarill is going to pick up the knockout, and by 2 Pokemon to 1, Galaxicobolton times out his opponent and advances to the group finals in Stockholm. All in all, when the tournament had concluded, Galaxicobolton ended up finishing tied for 9th. So, a pretty strong showing despite running a strategy that no one had ever attempted in competitive Pokemon Go. Now, do I think Stall is going to catch on and become a top strategy? I do not. particularly because it's quite difficult to run it successfully, and in an open team sheet format, when you know stall is coming, you can take preventative measures such as not letting your opponent take KOs and switching out as a result to try and win the timeout battle. But big congratulations to Galactica Bolton for running a very unusual strategy and having some very good results with it as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is my second channel, More Slice Henry, where I try and post educational content and content centered around the Pokemon Go Championship Series. If you enjoy content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and I'll see you guys next week.